Hello and welcome everyone to our very first Trinity Vineyard video, the video series where we empower eternally significant lives. In this week's video, we're going to look at the importance of your identity in Christ. In the next 10 videos, we'll look at different aspects of who you are and what defines you and your identity in Christ. Today we're going to look at what I call the foundational self. And it's called the foundational self for two reasons. First, it's built upon the foundations of the universe, that God created man and woman in His image. And so it's foundational back to the foundations of the universe, and it's foundational and that when we understand who we are in Christ, we get to build upon that. And it's a foundation of self that doesn't rely on external stimuli, but relies on who God is and what Christ has done for us. Jesus shares this story in Matthew chapter 7. Everyone who then hears these words of mine and does them will be like the wise man who built his house on the rock. And the rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat on that house, but it did not fall, because it had been founded on the rock. And everyone who hears these words of mine and does not do them will be like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. And the rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell, and great was the fall of it. Jesus talks about building your house upon the rock or upon the sand. And with our identity, we have the option of building it upon the rock, on Christ, or we can build it upon the sand. When we build our identity upon the sand, what we're really doing is we're building our identity on how other people view us, or our perception on how other people view us. And when you do this, your life becomes a hamster wheel, where you're spinning again and again, not moving anywhere with your identity, because your identity is always changing based on how other people are viewing you. Your identity then becomes about things like the numbers on a scale, or the type of car you drive, or the lack of a car, or the amount of money you have in the bank, or the clothes that you wear, or the job that you have, or how many likes you have on Facebook or Instagram. There's nothing wrong with any of these things, but when you base your identity on these things, then your identity becomes a roller coaster. Where one day you're feeling great and you feel like you're worth something because you have a lot of Facebook likes or because the numbers on the scale are what you wanted them to be. But then the next day, when you don't have the Facebook likes or numbers on the scale are a little bit higher, or you don't have as much money in the bank, then your identity goes super low and you're not worth anything. And it becomes this roller coaster ride of up and down with your identity because it's based on these external factors. And so instead of this roller coaster ride, we can then build our identity upon the rock. And that's when you base your identity, value, and worth on who God says that you are. And when you base your identity on who God says that you are, then that leads to freedom. The Gospel of John says this. So Jesus said to the Jews who had believed him, "If you abide in my word, you are truly my disciples, and you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." When we know the truth about who we are, when we believe the Bible, when we believe Jesus, then that leads to truth. And the truth will set us free. That we don't have to believe the lies that we have believed about ourselves, that we're not worth it, or that God doesn't love us. Because those are lies. And instead we base our foundational self, we base ourselves on who God says that we are. And that's building your house and building your identity upon the rock. The next 10 weeks we'll look at different pieces that build this house and build your foundational self. Please join us next week for our next video when we look at being created in God's image. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next week.